누구보다 리즈의 장애 학생과 가장 친밀하게 소통하며 그들을 지원하는 장애 학생 코디네이터와도 만날 수 있었는데요.
I'm Carly Miller and I am a disability coordinator at the University of Leeds. So I work in a team within disability services called the Disability Advice Team. And so we have a team of disability advisors and then a team of disability coordinators. The coordinators all work with specific schools, the advisors work across the university. So if there's something where someone's not quite sure how to put a reasonable adjustment in place, or if there are any questions or concerns, or if something maybe's gone not quite how we would have hoped it to, I can help with the explanation, maybe the negotiation about how things need to be done. So we provide our support summary sheets. They do a registration form, and on that form they can provide as much or little information as they want. We would be looking at the students' information that they've provided, and so we do that to kind of try figure out exactly what this student needs. One thing that's really important is that the summary sheet is a living document. It means that we can go back to it, we can review if something changes with their condition, if they realise actually.
또한 영국에는 장애 학생들을 위한 정부 지원금, DSA가 존재하는데요.
There is a process called Disabled Students Allowance that they can apply for. So it's not means tested, so it's not connected to how much your family earn, and it's not a loan, so you don't have to pay it back. And they'll see if there's like barriers to that, and then they'll make recommendations on what that student needs. So do they need assistive technology? Do they need taxi travel? And they will do the costings and they will send it to student finance, who will then make a decision about what to approve.
또 자폐와 류머티즘을 앓고 있는 캣가의 화상 인터뷰를 통해 DSA가 장애 학생에게 어떤 도움을 주는지 자세하게 들을 수 있었습니다.
Academic mentor, specifically for my mental health. This is a person that I go to every week. We talk for about half an hour about my experiences that week, my studies, with my societies, with university life generally. And it gives me a time to kind of decompress and explain how my disability affected me that week, how things are slightly more difficult for me than the people around me, and how I can use the university services to kind of alleviate those problems. This was something that is afforded to me because I have what's called a disabled students allowance, which is like an extra bit of money from the government. So that affords me to be able to pay this tutor to be able to meet with me regularly. And that's organised through our university's disability services team, and it's been invaluable to talk to.
뿐만 아니라 영국 정부는 휠체어로 출퇴근을 하는 사람들을 대상으로 한 지원 제도도 마련해 두었는데요.
I don't drive, so I actually get, this is going to sound very grand, I get taxis into work. I get taxis in every day from a wheelchair accessible taxi provider. But I actually have some government funding for that. There's a scheme that's run by the UK government called Access to Work, which is to support disabled people in the workplace. Again, it's not just physical disabilities, it's mental health and visual impairment and other types of disabilities, but I basically get some funding. So I pay part of the cost and the government pays part of the cost. Public transport is, buses do have accessible access, but particularly in rush hours and things, it's actually quite difficult to actually use them. Accessible transport exists, but it's actually quite tricky to access it in terms of practicalities.
장애 학생들의 학습과 생활에 필요한 기술적인 지원을 담당하는 톰에게도 짧게 이야기를 들어볼 수 있었습니다.
I'm the Assistive Technology Advisor for the University of Leeds, based in Disability Services. I work with students in one-to-one sessions, advising them of assistive technology and the options that are out there, whether they be options that the university provide or third-party options. I also train staff to increase awareness of some of the assistive technology options that we have at the university and some of the issues that students face whilst navigating academia and using assistive technology at the same time.
톰과의 인터뷰를 마친 뒤 우리는 리즈의 기숙사 환경을 보러 갔습니다. 리즈 대학은 영국 전역과 세계 여러 나라에서 온 유학생들이 다 함께 지내는 다문화, 다국적 학생들이 많은 곳입니다. 그로 인해 캠퍼스 내외로 기숙사가 많은데요. 그렇다면 장애 학생들의 기숙사 생활은 어떨까? 기숙사 전담 책임자 사라와 직접 기숙사 내부로 들어가 살펴봤습니다. 입구에는 버튼키를 센서에 인식하면 열리는 자동문이 설치되어 있습니다. 엘리베이터를 타고 올라간 6층. 복도 왼쪽 첫 번째 방이 장애 학생을 위한 방이었는데요. 내부에는 높이 조절이 가능한 책상과 천장의 끈이 보입니다.
So this is one of the rooms that we have, one of our wheelchair accessible rooms. So this is one of the smaller ones that we have. For example, something like this. It's all kind of made for students who need things at wheelchair height, so that these can all be made into, for example, pull rails that can be lowered down. So this is how the room is set up. So what I do basically is if somebody flags up to us on their application that they have kind of a disability or an additional requirement, I'm the one that allocates them somewhere that's the most suitable. So for example, if a student went into this room, what we could do is we would work with a student to, if there was any further adaptations needed, we can do anything really. For example, somebody might need an electric bed that goes up and down, and they may need additional rails, additional storage, different furniture, and things like this. So we can change everything in this room.
사라는 장애 학생의 필요에 따라 가구와 배치는 얼마든지 바꿀 수 있다고 강조합니다. 방 내부에 위치한 건식 화장실. 역시 곳곳에 손잡이가 설치되어 있고 휠체어가 충분히 들어갈 만큼 넓었습니다. 세탁과 요리 공간은 공용 공간이기 때문에 낮은 개수대와 화구도 자리하고 있었습니다. 다시 방으로 돌아와 사라와 함께 장애 학생과 기숙사에 대해 더 자세한 이야기를 나눠봤습니다.
My name is Sarah Ford. I am work in the accommodation office. I'm a senior accommodation assistant, and I deal with students with additional requirements, medical conditions and disabilities, and I've been doing this role for about 7 years. So in my role, what I do is when somebody, on their initial application to accommodation, they flag up that they have an additional requirement or a disability, I'm the one who works with them throughout the process to them applying to putting them into a room and making sure that everything is okay. There is a lot of consideration that we need. We have students who come with a very high level of need, and we work with them to make sure that they can live independently, who are in wheelchairs, who have neurological conditions and things like that. So we prioritise students who have medical conditions or disabilities for accommodation. Yeah. In the first year, I would say almost all students who have a disability use university accommodation. A lot of students do choose to live in private accommodation, which is non-university accommodation, in their second and third years, but we do get a handful who come back in year after year. I would say maybe 5% come back to us every year, and they tend to be students who would perhaps live in a room like this, who need a wheelchair or have quite a high level of need because they can't find anything in private. The private sector in Leeds is terrible for students who have disabilities, so often they have to come back to university accommodation because it's the only place they can live. Last academic year, I think it was about, I would say roughly about 550, and for this academic year, we're probably looking so far at about 300.
다음으로 만난 건 제니. 제니는 리즈 대학의 더 나은 교육 환경과 문화를 위한 연구소, 일명 라이트에서 일하고 있었습니다.
I'm Jenny Brady, and I'm the Inclusive Learning and Teaching Manager from the Leeds Institute for Teaching Excellence. A few years ago, I was supporting a student who couldn't study under fluorescent light like this, but because of the nature of the course, then the lights couldn't be switched off because studying something that was a very visual subject, so it would have been to the detriment of other students to have the light dimmed. So that was one example where we had to make a specific adjustment for that one student and not do something for all of the students in the group. So our baseline standards, they say that we need to make sure that all practices, activities and materials can be accessed by all students, but reasonable adjustments will be needed in some cases, but we want those cases to be the exceptions. So taking an inclusive approach means doing something that is going to benefit the majority of students. If it's not going to benefit the majority of students, then we won't do it. We'll just do something different for that small minority that need it.
캣은 한 수업의 팀플에서 겪은 일을 이야기하며 장애 학생의 입장에서 직접 보고, 듣고, 느낀 비장애 학생들의 인식은 어땠는지 전했습니다.
Students are often willing to learn more about disability, but they're also concerned about their own grades and their own success. And I think sometimes when people realise that your disability does affect your ability to participate in education, they can be frustrated because they think it's going to reflect badly on their work. I've had people who have given me support at the beginning of a project, but when they realise that I am more disabled than they thought, or it affects me more than they thought, they tend to back away and let the lecturer deal with me, essentially, and those lines of communication break down, because people are usually willing to, in theory, support disabled people, but in practice, when they see how it affects them, it can be really difficult to get people to want to help you or want to participate in projects with you, because they feel like it's extra work on their shoulders to make sure that the work is accessible.
리즈 대학에서의 취재를 마치고 다시 돌아온 한국. 이제는 우리 사회를 들여다봐야 할 차례입니다. 그 첫걸음을 내딛기 위해 EUBS는 전문가를 만나봤습니다. 먼저 장애인인권센터 서인환 회장에게 국내 장애인 인식 수준은 어떤지 이야기를 들어봤는데요.
장애인을 시혜나 동정 또는 자선적인 입장에서 우리는 장애인을 도와준다 이렇게 이야기 표현을 하잖아요. 그래서 도움을 받는 대상으로만 생각하고 장애인 입장에서 이렇게 동등하게 대우하는 그런 환경을 만드는 데는 아직도 갈 길이 멀다라고 생각합니다.
한국장애인개발원의 김인순 팀장과 함께 베리어 프리 캠퍼스에 대한 이야기도 나눠봤습니다.
기본적인 것조차도 아직 안 갖춰져 있는 상황이 대부분의 대학에서 나타나고 있지 않나. 우선은 이동을 할 수 있어야 되고, 그리고 또 정보에 접근할 수 있어야 되는 거죠. 정보에 접근한다는 것은 무슨 얘기냐면 강의를 들을 수 있어야 되는데, 청각장애를 갖고 있는 학생이 자기가 원하는 강의를 그냥 선택해서 아무 강의나 들을 수 있느냐, 시각장애가 있는 학생이 또 그렇게 할 수 있느냐, 지체장애를 갖고 있기 때문에 휠체어를 타야 되는 학생은 더더욱 그렇게 할 수 있느냐, 이런 부분들의 것이 아직은 너무나 미흡하다는 거지.
EUBS가 직접 보고 들은 국내 대학 캠퍼스 내 장애인의 생활은 여전히 불편했습니다. 한편 캠퍼스 내 비장애인들은 장애 학생들에 대한 지원 제도와 서비스를 당연하게 받아들이냐는 질문에 리즈 대학의 사이먼은 이렇게 답했습니다.
Yes, really easy. I think it's just part of our culture now that there's those adaptations and those services are provided. It's now been more than 30 years since services like this one have been created, so I think it just feels very much normal now. It's just part of what we do, and it's almost expected. And actually our students have very high expectations of the support they'll get when they come to university, because I'd say that the culture within the UK is now very much that there's a very high expectation about what support somebody should be able to access.
우리는 신체의 일부에 장애가 있거나 정신적으로 결함이 있어 일상생활이나 사회생활에 제약을 받는 사람을 장애인, 그렇지 않은 사람을 비장애인이라고 합니다. 장애인과 비장애인이 전혀 다르다고 생각하고 있었던 건 아닐까요? 하지만 남을 위한 일이 결국 나를 위한 일이 됩니다. 하루빨리 대학의 모든 구성원이 동등한 교육의 기회를 누릴 수 있는 캠퍼스가 필요합니다. 함께 살아가는 세상. 이제 비장애인 대신 비장애인, 장애인의 입장이 되어야 할 때입니다.
fell on down the stairs. Don't know if I'll find them things again. Slid in my life like a thief in the night, and you stole my common sense. The sun will never shine and the wolves will never cry till I'm holding you again. Love how you kiss every tattoo on my face.